Hello and welcome to the Christmas Eve episode of Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. My name is Ben Doughty.
My name is Michael Silkolajide.
And you're looking fantastically festive, Silk. It kind of... See, the thing is, there's nothing that you can wear that doesn't look cool, is there? It's just, it doesn't matter what it is, how cliched or whatever. It just looks good and a little bit avant-garde.
Oh, thank you. I wish I had it like that. I wish I had your Peaky Blinder thing. Then I could rock that too.
Thank you. Listen, Silk, it's funny that Gary is not here yet. It's funny that the Stretch is not with the Sugar and Silk because you said on Friday night you were really looking forward to this show. You were saying, "Oh, I can't wait," because you were getting a little bit gassed about your recent success in predictions.
No, that wasn't the reason why I was looking forward to it. That was not the reason why I was looking forward to it. And then it actually was not much to look forward to because guys didn't fulfill their edge of the promise. You know what I mean? They didn't fulfill their end. That's what was my problem with this fight. But go ahead, continue on with what you were saying.
Yeah. I thought you were looking forward to it because you were looking forward to being right with your predictions, and you were looking forward to having it, not with me because I'd actually picked the same as you this week and we both did as badly as each other. But Gary was the one who went against us. We both picked Miller to outlast Dubois. I think we thought was going to happen, and to walk him down. We were wrong. Dramatic 10th round stoppage. Gary picked Dubois. And we both picked Wilder to KO Parker. And then Gary said no. Parker will expose a shot overrated Wilder, and he was somewhat on the money about that as well. The only thing we agreed on with Joshua. I
mean, like with me, Deontay Wilder is always a wild card. It's like you never know what you're going to get, and I just thought, okay, he hasn't been. I'm figuring like common sense. He hasn't been there for a year. He's been working with new trainers. If he's been working every day consistently with these new trainers for a year, we're going to see something dynamic, something interesting, something explosive. We're going to see more different varying combinations. We're going to see defensive skills we'd never seen out of him before. And that was the furthest from all he did was, he practiced posing. That's really all he did. He posed and used the threat of power, which didn't mean anything.
It was totally dreadful, Silk. It was so threadbare it wasn't true. It was beyond sub-novice. And yet you had such a lot of faith in this idea that he was going to make all these improvements at 38 years of age. You think outside the box.
It has nothing to do with his age. Has nothing to do with his age. It becomes a matter of him wanting to win. And I remember Mark Breland, one of his issues was you cannot teach him anything. Those were Mark's words. He does not want to learn. He does not want to do it. I figured, okay, well, he's got new trainers and he's on to something new. So maybe it was just an issue between him and Mark. Mark was absolutely right. He obviously doesn't want to learn because he did nothing. Well, actually, he did learn. He learned to be more of a poser and wait and use his power as a threat, but not actually to use your power as a threat. You have to hit a man first. So then he knows he's threatened and then you'll chill him out. But he came in there expecting that kid to be afraid of him from the opening bell, and that wasn't the case. The guy's a professional boxer.
Yeah, and it was just so. There was no jab, there was no combinations. It was really. It makes you wonder almost how Wilder ever had as much success as he did when you were watching last night. This is where he's at, like you say, with having
of the division. Ben, I mean, let's just see the division. The division really is that bad. When people, look at, I look at Bivol and I look at how Bivol performed, and you look at him and you look at his skills and the ability and all the rest of that kind of stuff, and you look at the heavyweights and you're like, what exactly is wrong with you guys? Like, how do you not get the note? Like, this is not boxing. What you're doing is not
Did you
boxing.
Get the memo from the lower divisions that's showing you how to do it? Yeah,
exactly. And it's the fighters, the greatest fighters, heavyweights of all time are the fighters that fight like lighter weight fighters, not the guys that fight like heavyweights and throw one punch at it. George Foreman in his day did not fight like that. Even when he came back, he didn't fight like that. Neither did Ken Norton, neither did Joe Frazier, neither did Jerry Quarry, neither did Muhammad Ali. There ain't. And no fighters, not until you get to like the Greg Page era and where guys are holding and slopping on one another and everything. That's the only time you start to see heavyweights change. And I think it's kind of like I wanted to say insidious, but there was a when trainers. I remember coming to New York, and I remember coming in and I was moving and I was bouncing and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And a lot of trainers were like, he bounces too much, he moves too much. Bigger fighters should be moving. You should be planting your feet, getting that back foot down, and turning it into your power. And they were like that with heavyweights too. And it started in the 80s, and then it started to implement itself in the 90s, and it continued on to this very day. And now they're going to go back to a more athletic heavyweight, I believe, because those are the only ones that can do it.
That's all I ever heard, Silk, was stop bouncing. Don't bounce. Even on the coaching course, when I finished boxing competitively and I did the coaching badges, the amateur thing where you already know how to box, but you're learning to be a coach, and you do the course that you have to qualify to become an ABA registered coach. And the first thing they said as soon as I started shadowboxing was, watch your bounce. That's the way you box, and you might have got away with it, but you can't do it here. You can't pass the course like that. And
why not? But the thing is, what the bounce does, it creates awareness. It creates space distance. It creates like you're always engaged. Mentally, you're always engaged. It's harder to like when you stop and plant in front of a guy, it's very easy to like lose that mental focus. And when you're always in a state of movement, you can react a lot faster than if you were.
That's what I feel like, Silk. I feel I'm on my game as long as there's that little bit of movement and a bounce. Yeah. If you asked me to throw any combination on the bag, I would do like two or three bounces first before I threw the punch. I can't help it.
Yeah.
Rather than walking up to it and throwing the punches.
I mean, the most important thing is like you have to have variety. You have to be able to do anything and everything. But guys that are flat-footed can never bounce, and guys that can bounce can be flat-footed if they need to. Like when you get down off your bike, you stand, you plant your feet. You can do that, but bouncing is an additive, is an advantage. It isn't a disadvantage.
Even Joe Frazier had a bit of a bounce. A very aggressive fighter, a pressure fighter, sat down on his shots, but he had that constant little kind of jig all the time.
Yeah, he's always moving, always in a state of movement, and that,
absolutely. I mean, obviously, a guy like Donald Curry didn't, but he had his way of doing it. He had his way to home.
Yeah. But the thing is, when you don't have movement, when it goes bad, it crashes. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you do not move, if you do not know how to move, and then all of a sudden, like the wheels come off, it's just, when you get hurt, you're more likely to catch a 10 count or get, stopped by the referee. You don't keep your man searching for the right range. You know what I mean? Like a lot of guys, if you're always stepping out of range, a lot of guys can't let their shots go. They have to be planted in order to punch. So if you're planted already, you know what I mean? If you plant your feet and throw your punches, you're more likely to, you're going to catch it in return as well. When you punch, you alert the other guy to punch back. And if you're standing right there, you're in the line of fire.
Yeah. So Wilder.
So why don't we start off with Bivol? Even though we didn't call that fight.
Yeah, we didn't call that. Well, you want to talk about him? Yeah, sure. I think Bivol, obviously, he had a guy who was grossly overmatched in there with him. I said to you before the fight on Friday night, Lyndon Arthur is a decent domestic light heavyweight that, not a reasonably well-schooled kid, but he had nothing to beat Bivol with as far as I was concerned. Yeah. And you saw that. I remember, who was it? Paul Malignaggi said, people should have picked up on the fact that he was only trying to survive. That's why, rather than criticize Bivol for not going for the stoppage, he said, why didn't the commentators isolate the fact that this guy wasn't trying to win? It's hard to stop a guy who's not even trying to win. But I can't really blame Lyndon Arthur, to be honest with you, Silk, because what was he supposed to do in there?
Was he given full time, like knowledge of
4 weeks.
the fight?
4 weeks.
4 weeks?
That's what he said.
Well, it seems to me in watching him, this is the first time I've seen Arthur. It seemed to me that it doesn't seem like he's been boxing for a long time. Yeah, am I right or wrong? Like, it seems like he's a late start. And I say that his mechanics were somewhat halting.
I don't know when he started, actually. I don't know how much amateur background he has. I know he has a handful of pro fights and has been British light heavyweight champion, but that's all I know. I don't know how far his schooling goes back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he seemed hesitant, and he seemed hesitant because as an amateur or pro, that style that Bivol has is very, very difficult for like Western Hemisphere fighters to deal with if you haven't fought or seen them internationally before. Bivol style is a nightmare if you've never seen
Russian Olympic style.
Yeah, those Russian Olympic styles. You know what I mean? They're just, they have an answer for everything in terms of punching. And when they come back with combination. So all you can do is put his hands up and wait for the storm to, you know what I mean? The storm to subside, and it never did. Every time he did something, the kid came back. Although he did do one thing, and he hit him with I think a right hand to the body that took the wind out of Bivol.
Strange moment, wasn't it?
Sorry?
A strange moment in the fight. That was a strange moment.
Yeah. But that was his opportunity. And if every fighter at some point in the fight gets an opportunity, there's a chance. And whether you take advantage of it or not is up to you. It depends on how much gas you have and experience you have and intellect you have, like fight intellect. And I don't believe that, unfortunately, Arthur just didn't have that or the confidence to go ahead and really like take advantage of that moment. But that was that one little bit open window where
he was temporarily emboldened, right? He came forward and he threw at least one big right hand, and he understood that he had hurt him to the body. Yeah. But it was a very strange moment, wasn't it? Because they were looking for a replay, weren't they? I don't know if you were watching the same version I was watching. They were looking for the replay between rounds and they couldn't get it. They were trying to find that again, being like, what happened there when Bivol showed the sign of discomfort and backed up? And Arthur looked, let's say, he looked temporarily confident just for a millisecond, But
But I think, as we were saying, experience has a lot to do with that. Bivol was punching in between the beats as well as on the beat. You know what I mean? And he was unpredictable. He was sticking the hand. He always had that hand kind of like in his face and buzzing around and kept him distracted. And that's what that left hand, that high left hand, the Russians always used to do, or they have it halfway out and close to your opponent. Because it has less distance to travel, so it gets to you faster, but it also keeps you in check. It's like wherever you do, if they whatever move you make, if they lengthen that left hand, it takes away the advantage and it alerts you to like, oh, I got to stop and try something else because he doesn't have the knowledge to punch through that. I don't know if his corner told him, punch through his left hand. Don't stop because he's sticking his left hand out. You have to punch through.
His cornerman, Arthur's cornerman was Pat Barrett, a former world-class light welterweight. Had one world title fight and lost to Manning Galloway, if you remember him. But Pat Barrett was a serious talent and a serious puncher, but he fell prey to the gangland life in Manchester and the whole Gunchester thing. And that's probably what stopped Pat reaching his full potential. He was around the same time as Chavez when Chavez was the leading light welterweight. But Pat wouldn't have beaten him, I don't suppose. But Pat could have achieved much more than he did, even having been a European and a British champion. That was the guy in Lyndon Arthur's corner. So,
he's absolutely knowledgeable, but there's always something that gets in our way. That's all I could say. And the champions are the ones that can overcome it, or their opponent, the person who they're fighting, aren't what they are advertised to be.
How would you rate? What do you think would happen if Bivol fought Iceman John Scully's man, Beterbiev?
That's a really good fight. I think that's the best and the most interesting fight that could be made in boxing today. What do you think? I mean, I like that fight. There's everything about it. I like both of their energy. I like their ability. I like the fact that they're both real and they don't, they don't.
I lean towards Bivol because of his technical ability and his age, him being, probably in the prime of his life right now. I believe he's about 32. Whereas,
so hold on 1 second. Let's put the brakes on for a second. When you say his age, what is Bivol? What is the downside of Beterbiev's age right now?
Well,
what do you
last time I checked, most fighters, once they get into about 40, were not as effective as they used to be, despite, a few high-profile maverick examples or, exceptions. It's no secret,
but it is absolutely an individual thing, right? Huh? It's absolutely an individual thing.
See, here's the thing that you do. This is what you do. I've noticed as I was thinking about this earlier today. Because certain things ain't necessarily so. because certain things ain't necessarily so, and you decide you've built this universe in which they're never so, because it ain't always the case. Certain tendencies in life, generalizations, you've decided they just plain don't exist, which I feel that's not quite true. Like the idea of weight is no advantage, size is no advantage, reach is no advantage, strength is no advantage, and so on and so on. I think that sometimes there's a tendency, once you've bucked the trend that it's not necessarily the case, I think you decide that from a default position it's never the case. I think that Bivol is
that's
fresher.
not true. That's making an assumption. No, that's not true at all. I'm not contrary just to be contrary. I'm contrary for a reason. Like I'm contrary because I've seen the other side of things, and I know the potential of things. At least I'm pretty sure I've seen a whole lot of things at this point in my life, especially boxing. In boxing concerned, I couldn't make these same claims of other sports or other theories and people's lives, but I certainly, I can confidently about boxing after seeing it so many times, know that each and everything can be overcome if you just told or given or do the right thing.
Like I say, with Beterbiev being the age he is, he's not going to be. He ain't going to be there in 3 years' time.
Okay, but and you say that because father time is taking it away from him? Like it's an aging process.
Yeah,
age,
and I think you can see it to an extent in the last fight with Anthony Yard, even. I was there live. Oh.
Yeah. I remember the Yardy fight, and I thought I saw some things too, but
yeah. So I would lean towards. Here's the thing, right? I would lean towards Bivol because of his technical ability, and because I believe he is the fresher and closer to his prime of the two. I do, but having said that, Artur is way more of an assassin than Bivol is ever going to be, regardless of age. And
when you say assassin, you're meaning mostly punching power, basically,
and spite. And you see, Bivol just doesn't have that. He doesn't have that spite, that finishing instinct. It's just not him, which we spoke about.
That's only because he's not a power puncher. Power punchers tend to be spiteful individuals. They're a lot more aggressive. They're a lot more hardliners. They're like the right wingers in politics.
Yeah, but then I suppose you get a guy like Jack Potter, wasn't you?
They're authoritarians, basically, right? Power punchers are authoritarians, and the non-punchers are the opposite side of that.
Yeah, although what about Jake LaMotta? Not a huge puncher, but definitely spiteful and definitely bellicose, to use what word that you used recently. So here you go, Silk. I tend to lean towards Bivol, but knowing Scully creates a little bit of bias. It makes you question that, but because obviously when one of your guys is involved close in the setup, it gives you more faith in that setup. And I do think Arthur is obviously a bigger puncher, and he's a lot more spiteful, just more of an assassin. One guy's a technician and a machine, the other guy is a killer. I don't want to use that word flippantly in boxing terms, but I agree with you.
Like Bivol, for instance, he's going to be backing up against Beterbiev. That's going to change the game up right away. Like I don't believe he's going to meet him on an even plane, like in the middle of the ring, and he's going to go at Beterbiev. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they'll dance around each other kind of immediately in the first round, and they'll be measuring each other and getting their range, and then it's going to be Bivol taking the step forward. I don't think Beterbiev is going to be, backing up and dancing and a la Chiguere or anything. It's not going to happen. So that's kind of thing that makes it an interesting fight, because if Bivol decides not to back up and step off and do like Russian amateur boxing with them, they're going to meet each other at center ring, and then it comes down to different things like accuracy and the quickness of their release and the amount of punches that they can throw.
Well, yeah, exactly. We have a little question here from one of the people watching the show. Abdul Rahim says, let me see. It says, what was your best fight of the year? Best up and coming fighter, like most improved fighter, Best fighter and best knockout. It's like year-end awards. It's asking almost for the year-end awards.
Yeah, so I think we should say that we should save this question for next weekend.
You think so? Yeah, because
Yes,
it's the end of the year, literally.
You know what I mean? So then we can actually make a list.
Yeah. We have to think about that, don't we? I guess we do have to think about that. I feel like answering one of them just for the immediacy, the fact it's been asked online, and we'll come back with the rest of them. In which case, the first question we asked, what was our best fight? What do you think was the fight of the year? I'm trying to think. I think what great fights have we seen this year?
Yeah, this is what I mean.
It's funny how you get like a blank, isn't it?
Yeah, there's like fights happen, and you're like, oh yeah, what about that one? That's why I'm always let's defer until next week.
Okay, we'll come back to that next week. Wilder said he'd been on the. Do you know how to pronounce this drug, Silk? It's called ayahuasca. Perhaps it chilled him out too much to the point. Everybody's been mentioning this drug, Silk, in the last 24 hours, saying that Wilder's been taking this funny drug, which makes you more kind of Zen-like and Buddha-like and less bellicose.
So is it going to show? Is it a performance enhancer? Is it going to show up on his urine test?
No, I don't believe it's a performance enhancer because I don't suppose you could talk about it so flippantly if it was. But it says at times he looked like Hakim one day. Abid Ali says everybody's talking about this drug. What is it? Is it? Someone said to me it's something to do with some kind of toad venom or something. Have you heard of it?
No, it doesn't sound appetizing to me. If it doesn't have sugar in it, as far as I'm concerned, it ain't going to work.
Okay. Well, anyway, everybody's talking about Wilder taking this drug, honestly, and he says he makes him much more in touch with himself and more the idea that we're all one and we're all one kind of vibrating mass of energy.
His personality after the fight certainly matched that. He said, life's wonderful. I've got all my money, and life's beautiful, and I can this, and I respect people, and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be placated going into a fight. You certainly that's not. You know what I mean? If anything, you want as much like you want to be on that little bit on that higher side. You know what I mean? You want to have fire going into a fight. That's one thing. No matter what, even if you're a defensive minded fighter, you do not win unless you have offense. It's just impossible.
Exactly. How does it happen? Abdul Rahim did ask what we thought of the Ajit Kabayel fight. I think you might have missed that one, Silk, but I can say it was a great performance by the European champion Ajit Kabayel. I think Marmadov was perhaps a little bit exposed as a tad overrated, certainly based on last night's. Do you know what, Silk? Because I know you didn't see the whole card. I've got to say it was a great viewing experience. It started at 4 p.m. in the UK. They were straight in with Frank Sanchez, in with a 10-rounder. That was a pretty entertaining fight with Junior Farr. And they just trimmed all the fat and just kept getting them in the ring, They had a little bit of a break because we saw some early stoppages and early knockouts, and they had a little bit of chat. But really, it was one hell of a marathon card last night. And at one point I thought, do you know what? It's only 8 p.m. and we've got 3 main events left. We've still got the Bivol, then we've got Wilder Parker, then Joshua Barleen. So it was one hell of a package they put together last night. And I know in the States you only had to pay $40 for the pay-per-view, which is kind of extremely cheap by normal standards. That was only 20 quid.
Yeah. Wow.
This appears to be I saw a few people commenting. It's funny. On the one hand, you're like, I disapprove of Saudi Arabia and their regime and the inhumanity and lack of human rights. But God, they don't have now to put a boxing show on. The only thing some people were saying was that the atmosphere is not quite there. The crowds are not the same in those kind of places. But it was one hell of a card they put together, and I think to an extent it did deliver. Miller looked horrible, says Abid Ali. But that was kind of an entertaining fight, as technically bereft as it was. Miller versus Dubois. Did you think? Kind of entertaining.
So we're off the other one. Did we put closure on the B-ball fight? Put closure on it, right?
What closure do you seek? I mean, in terms of the Arthur fight,
I'm just saying, like, we're package is done. We shove it off now. So that one's over.
Unless there's anything you'd like to add about Bivol.
No, I mean, we brought up Beterbiev, and you didn't say who you thought would win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who do you think would win?
I lean towards Bivol.
Bevo. Oh, you really do believe that? Okay.
Yeah, but
I'm
as I
still
say,
in the pick 'em phrase. I mean, the kid is busy, and he'll get busy, and he'll throw a lot of punches. How much, like Beterbiev is, as you like to say, extremely strong.
yeah,
But he also moves his hands back. He moves his hands really well. He seems to be a little bit heavier handed and therefore not able to throw in as quick combination as
yeah,
Bivol, which could be a problem. Like it looks like he would need a strong late round flurry in order to do something. Like he'd have to put rounds back to back late on because it's going to be hard early. That's a hard fight early. The first 5 rounds, that's going to be a hard fight for him. But after that, if he's comes through and he's not too, you know what I mean? He's still got the better of himself. I think he can get it late.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't rule out a
And
possibility.
seeing Bivol hurt by that body shot is going to do so many things for him. Yeah, true or false, whatever way, it doesn't matter. When you see a fighter that's been hurt, been knocked down, been in trouble, anything, you're like, okay, you feel
But
like you can
that was very
appreciate that.
subtle, though, wasn't it? He may focus on that. That's the sort of thing that could get forgotten because it was such a fleeting cameo of a situation.
Yeah, but the thing is, as a fighter, you know how it felt. Like Beterbiev knows how Bivol felt when that happened. So all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I see a way in. I see him hurt, and when you see a person hurt, you're like, he can be hurt, and of course, I can hurt him way more than that guy can because I'm better. So all that does is it empowers him. Really, it empowers Beterbiev. But
Yeah,
ought to be a great. But when that comes down, that's going to be a great fight. It's only unfortunate that they're both not like at the dinner table conversations in the States or in the Western Hemisphere yet. They need each other to become that, but they should be that beforehand. And that's the unfortunate thing. They're not going to get as much money as they should have, maybe unless they fight in Saudi Arabia. That's my closure.
well, sure, yeah, and I think obviously the Saudis are going to keep going with this. They're going to run with this for a while now. As Abdul Rahim has just pointed out, that next time out, Beterbiev next month is going up against Callum Smith. Remember the guy who fought Canelo a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
So that that is the next defense for Beterbiev. I can't remember the date, but early January.
If he thinks Canelo hits hard, oh my god!
Sure, thing is, he never getting stopped, Callum Smith, against Canelo, but he was just completely dominated by him. Never really. Yeah. I think Billy Joe Saunders
something stopped him from implementing an effective offense against Canelo, and it's the fact that Canelo hit hard that he didn't do all the things he wanted to do. Right? That's the thing that kind of like chilled him out, and iced his attack. And when Beterbiev, if he hits him, doesn't matter if he hits him on the hip, if he hits him on the arm, shoulder. That the pain is there, and that is one of the things you have to respect it. Because if that same punch that hits you on the shoulder and hurts hits you on the face, you know what I mean? It's going to happen.
Sure.
So he's going to have to pussyfoot around.
It's January 13th, by the way, for Beterbiev versus Smith. So obviously our friend Iceman John Scully, I think he's in Montreal right now, isn't he? I think he's in Montreal helping him get ready for that as we speak.
Yeah, he's doing his thing over there. So we'll see what happens with. He's not taking Christmas off. That fight's right around the corner. What's it? 2 weeks? No, 2 weeks away.
Yeah. Pretty much. A little
it's gonna be a great fight.
Abid Ali says Joshua looked really good, relaxed and confident, but Eddie seemed relieved that Wilder lost. I felt he never wanted AJ to fight Wilder, regardless of what he says. Because that was the thing, Silk. What we saw last night was another example of what happens when you sit on a fight for too long and you let it marinate, in inverted commas, for too long. One of them gets beat and it loses the kind of relevance and luster that it had. They're not going to fight Wilder now. Because there was, AJ and Wilder should have fought 5 years ago or thereabouts. You know what I mean? So there's another example of how the best laid plans of mice and men can go awry in this game.
That's so. You want to jump to that fight, the main event, or you want to go to?
We can talk about Miller and Dubois quickly first, before we talk about Wilder and Joshua's respective performances.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, Big Baby. The first word that comes to my mind is apathetic. I mean, like fear of losing gets you in shape, bro. Like I don't get it. I don't get how people can like go into a fight, not be in shape, not be remotely in any condition, and you just take the fight for money, and then you lose, and then you're okay. You're like, okay, well, next time I'm gonna train. More power to him for winning the fight, but next time I'm gonna train, I'm gonna come in. I know the money's great and all the rest of that kind of stuff, but the money should be your incentive to get your ass in shape. Sacrifice, even if it's, I don't know, he must have been given at least a month for this fight, right?
You talk about sacrifice, right? You see the shape of him, because did you realize that he was in quite that bad a shape until you saw him at the weigh-in? Because doesn't he look quite solid in a shirt? Yeah,
in a shirt, yeah. But as soon as he took his shirt off, I was like, why did I ever gamble on this guy?
Yeah, I know. You had serious misgivings as soon as you saw him jump in the ring, right?
I was like, there's just absolutely no way that a fighter can go in the ring like that. And you know that he's sacrificed, because that's what training is. Training for a fight is 100% sacrifice. Day in, day out sacrifice. That's not how your body looks when you're
Did I tell you what I saw once in his hotel room? Because I think this is an insight into the mindset and lack of dedication. When he was supposed to fight Anthony Joshua in 2019, right? He was supposed to fight Joshua in the fight that Andy Ruiz ended up getting June the 1st in 2019 at Madison Square Garden. Okay, now they were doing a press tour in London back in, I guess it was April or May, ahead of that fight. Yeah, it was probably 6 weeks out maybe, and they thought Miller was fighting Joshua, so that was the press conference. And I did an interview with Miller in his hotel room, and I've never seen so much junk food in one place. Burgers, chips, honestly. But it was like a joke, Silk. Suppose you said we're gonna try and break the world record for binge burger eating. You know, the heart attack grill, heart attack kind of thing. And I looked at it and was shocked. And his publicist said to me, I mean, listen to me now talking about it on a podcast, but she said, "Don't tell nobody you saw this," she said. But I could not believe how many burgers. There was just boxes and boxes of burgers and fries. It was like a joke. I don't think. Apparently, it wasn't all for him. Apparently, there was 4 of them in his entourage that were eating. But there was about 30 boxes of burgers and chips everywhere. And I've never forgotten that.
And I'm sure the hotel too, at the roach infestation afterwards. You leave that thing laying around for like. In New York, they're very aggressive.
The Siam Park Lane Hilton as well. You know, talk about lowering the tone. But because that's the thing, right, Silk? Heavyweights don't have to make weight, but you shouldn't be binging on burgers.
Exactly.
You'll be for whatever championship.
You don't have to make weight, but you do have to respect yourself. You have to get in your best physical condition, and your body tells everybody where your mind is at. If your body's not right, your mind's not right, and those things, you know what I mean? Those things just they don't match up together. They do not. If you're fighting for a world title and you're coming in and you don't look like somebody who could be respected, you're going to be disrespected. And he did that to himself. He may have talent, he may have ability, but he would never know, because his ability, the condition of his body allowed him to have ability like sporadically, and his ability, the best ability that he showed was in between rounds. It wasn't during the fight. He has more talent than that, but he didn't give himself the chance to show his talent because he didn't make any sacrifice. It's almost like, I believe he took the fight on money, but there's no excuse. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not like, oh, I could have beat him if I had 6 weeks or 8 weeks to train. It doesn't matter. That's all a part of fighting. Every single thing that you do when you sign that contract to when that fight happens, that's on you. And anything that happens in there is a responsibility. It goes into you either winning or losing. And he did not help himself win that fight.
By the way, Abdul Rahim has said, will corruption ever be removed in boxing? I think I can answer shortly with that one. No. Are you with me on that?
No, absolutely, I 100% guarantee. And unless he has a specific type of corruption he's talking about, I don't know. Maybe there's examples of that he wants to get into. But anyway, that fight was like, I mean, you could absolutely see it. Money and backhander.
Money and backhanders. Backhanders are like payments under the table.
Oh, so does he believe that? Does he believe that the kid took a dive on purpose, like for Dubois?
He's not talking about that fight specifically. I don't think he's just asking general questions while we do this. But no, I mean, I think it's like Miller was trying to win the fight, and the thing with Miller is, as woeful as his condition might be, he's very consistent and he does throw a lot of punches, and he kept coming forward. And at one point, I did think, you know what, he's gonna outlast Dubois here. He's gonna walk him down. Dubois is gonna guess out. He's going to clump him with something. He's going to get him in trouble with the kind of Tim Witherspoon-esque overhead rights. And he's going to roll over Dubois around about the 8th round. I remember thinking just like a Bruno Bone Crusher scenario, but that didn't happen. And in the end, it was Dubois who got the stoppage, you know. So
So it's hard for me really to compliment and give the thumbs up to Dubois in this fight for some reason. And I think it's only because, you know, Miller was so woefully terrible that I can't give any, like, I can't say, wow, Dubois was improved. Dubois was definitely better than Miller. He definitely, you know, paid the price that a fighter should take going into the fight. He did everything right. And yes, I'm going to give him credits for that. But you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to say. Like, Miller took away Dubois' shining moment. He killed it coming in like that.
You think? Well, you say that, but I think Dubois is riding high today, and he's got plenty of credit for the situation, and he's getting backslapped and congratulated, and he's back in the big picture now. So you might feel that. I don't know. Back in the big
picture, but okay. So how many fighters that fought? I don't know. Let's say. Let's talk about a great fighter and somebody that beat a great fighter in their worst days. You're not taking accolades for that. You know what I mean? Like Muhammad Ali against Trevor Berbick. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. Or Larry Holmes against Muhammad Ali, or I don't know. I mean, you can't really take it away from Terry Norris against Sugar Ray, because Sugar Ray's a phenom, but we do that with Camacho against Sugar Ray. It's like,
I think I agree that the Norris one is devalued to an extent as well. You just think that Ray wasn't the same, otherwise he would have beat Terry Norris, you know, as good as Norris was, you know.
But those are the things that it's really interesting how Marvin Hagler avoided all that. After that loss, he was just like, that's it. And he was able to cut it off, and he didn't embarrass himself. He didn't get into that stage where he would question his, his Spartan work ethic and stuff like that. But, you know, it's hard to give it to somebody when somebody so blatantly didn't want to win the fight, which is pretty much what Baby Miller did. He didn't care. He just wanted the paycheck. I'm sure he got at least probably $2 million for that. $1 to $2 million, more than he ever got. Who wouldn't say yes to that?
Yeah, for sure. You know, and it's difficult to be even that, you know, pissed off about the result or disappointed for some people.
Yeah, he's happy. His corner was happy still. Anyway, they were like bouncing around, shaking everyone's hand. It's like $2 million.
You know, apparently they went to shake Don Charles's hand. Don Charles is a friend of mine, and he's Dubois' trainer. And Don Charles said, "Don't fucking try and shake my hand. You've been talking all this trash, you know, all this stuff you've been talking all week." He said, "Don't try and shake my hand now."
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, and that's, you know, that's a man of character. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. So Wilder, you know, all right. So Parker did what he had to do, and people have agreed that Wilder looked awful, really, you know, non-committal. And never, certainly your feeling. Have we said it yet? By the way, Gary absolutely smashed it with his predictions. You had confidently predicted that Wilder would be a different animal under, you know, Malik Scott and all the adjustments you thought they might be making. We didn't see any of that, you know. But
can I say one thing?
He is 38 years old.
Can I say one thing? Wilder tamed. Okay, go on.
He is 38 years old, you know. You spoke about Muhammad Ali versus Larry Holmes and the shell of a fighter he was at that point. Same age as Wilder is now. You know, I realize it doesn't.
Whoa! Never Wilder and Ali in the same sentence, please. No, that's sacrilege. I mean,
But all I'm saying is that if Ali was complete shell of what he had been at 38 years of age, we're talking about a very different career, of course. But Wilder is that same age. He's approaching that age where Ali had hit athletic senility. That's the only context for it.
yeah, I could never use Ali and Deontay in the same sentence. I just can't hear it.
Well, what I'm saying is he shot to bits because he's 38, Wilder? Is it because we
No,
accepted Ali was shot to bits because he was 38, right?
No, it's not. It's not because he's 38, and it's not because he didn't go nearly through the wars Ali went through. I mean, come on, like there's absolutely not. That was the worst fight I've seen since Greg Page and George Chaplin. I said that to you yesterday. I'm just looking at it. I'm like, I can't even believe that that bro was world champion. Like that's the state of the division, and that's just mind blowing.
Well, not just that. He made 10 defenses of the WBC title. Let's say he wasn't world champion. He was WBC champion. Look, I'm always very clear on that. He was a WBC champion coexisting with other champions.
Okay, but I couldn't tell you right now at this point if you asked me the name of one of those guys he fought. I couldn't tell you. I could look at them and say, "Oh yeah, that guy," and remember that. But I can't tell you a name. That's because they're here today, gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's just it's just not there. I don't know. I just
well, here's the thing, right? Because of this nonsense that we've created, and Nigel Collins spoke about how the alphabet groups have ruined everything beyond recognition. Here's what's going to go down now that Wilder has lost in the fashion he's lost. Obviously, the AJ fight's not hot anymore, right? So Eddie Hearn has said, here's what's going to happen. When Fury fights Usyk in February for the undisputed championship, as people keep reminding us, soon as one of them wins, the IBF are going to strip one of them of the title because they have a rematch clause, and they are going to demand that the winner fights Hrgovic, Filip Hrgovic, who was also on the bill last night. Okay, so Joshua is going to fight Hrgovic for the vacant IBF title, and he's going to call himself a 3-time world heavyweight champion after if he beats him. Bearing in mind his first time was a vacant IBF title that they stripped of Tyson Fury against that fella Charles Martin, who wasn't up to much.
Yeah, this is what I don't follow heavyweight boxing that closely to know the dramatics of it all. I kind of like I have a ratings organization in my own head, and I look at guys and I'm like, no. Maybe okay, I kind of see, you know what I mean? But that's really about it. The heavyweights especially, I cannot even rate. Like it's a mess. It really is. There's not one dominant individual, and with the exception, obviously with the exception of I'm being punchy right now. The kid out of Ukraine, Usyk. I do like him. I do think he's a good fighter. I think he will beat. He already beat. The kid, but he'll beat everyone else anyway. He'll beat Tyson Fury. He's the best in the division, I believe, right now.
So you fancy Usyk to win in February?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you and me are going to be out there. I hope Gary is there too. I don't know where he's gone tonight, and that will be fun because honestly, my feeling was that Fury would beat Usyk, and I'm still kind of clinging to that. As bad as Fury looked last time out against the MMA fighter, I'm still not prepared to make that jump and think that Usyk definitely wins the fight. I think possibly as well when you see there's something about Usyk against Dubois, even though he took care of business. There was something in that fight that didn't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone has, everyone has a weakness, and I do believe he got caught with like the shot didn't affect his testes, but it did hit him, in the middle of the body where there's extreme amount of pain, and you know what I mean. And he was a little levity. He was given a little bit of room to get himself back together and then come back and win. But that's up to Dubois at that point to put the finishing touch on it. He's the one that's got to put the cap on it. And he wasn't able to do that, so he's not champ, everything being even, ultimately. So I don't blame Usyk for that. That's between the officials and the other fighter. The
Yeah.
fight was there. The fight was there for Dubois to win, and he wasn't able to. And in fact, it was kind of disappointing the way he picked up after that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm still up in
So,
the air about that fight.
so what about Joshua's performance? That was the only one that me and you got right from the
Yeah.
picks that we made on Friday Night Show.
One
And
out
it
of
turns
three.
out Gary got it right as well, because we thought he'd gone the other way. He'd actually nailed that one as well. It turned out video evidence was produced. But Joshua looked better, certainly, than he did against Selenius. You know, he looked confident. He looked purposeful. He looked sharp and like a bit of rhythm. But some people are suggesting that people are going overboard because he didn't have a lot to beat him, Wallin.
Well, the thing is, I think what happened, they have history, and because they have history, he was Joshua could be at his most confident, and he should be at his most confident because they've sparred together, they fought each other, and I don't think at any time that Otto got over on him or got up on him or dropped him or hurt him or anything like that. It's always been he was dominant. So this is a nice win to get it back under the belt. He did look really good. He looked very confident. He looked very determined and purposeful. And if he can do that against an opponent he has no experience with, that's the kind of Joshua you want to see and expect to see. So I think this fight was chosen perfectly for him. And maybe this is one of the reasons why we couldn't get Joey Gamache on the show. I talked to him. I was like, let's get, can we get him on the show? Can I get you on the show? Can I get some quotes? And he's like, nah, sorry, I don't do interviews.
Thing is, Joey just doesn't know. Joey is such a. Do you know what? Joey is the first guy I ever asked for an interview. I'd never interviewed any fighters back in 2003 in New York City when I was training at Gleason's, and I thought maybe I could do interviews. I had a notion that could be a path for me in terms of boxing activities. There was no social media hadn't really kicked off at that point, and he was so evasive, and he kept almost half acquiescing and relenting, but he never did an interview ever. And then I see him again at the press conference when they first announced the Day of Reckoning card, and he didn't do one then either. I was saying maybe you could come on the show as well, and he said, well, maybe. He just doesn't like to talk or caught the limelight at all, Joey. You know?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I asked him for Otto as well, if not him, and it wasn't an option either. But and I think, well, obviously, Joey was an excellent fighter and very well established as an amateur as well as a pro. But I think every time people want to talk to him about things, they want to talk to him about the big loss and the how everything was unfair. So against Gatti, against Gatti. So that knockout was brutal, and people are always talking on that, and he's probably just heard enough and doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble. Sometimes you get somebody's career is overshadowed by a certain thing. I'll give you another example. Terry Marsh, the former IBF light welterweight champion, he is sick to death of being asked about shooting Frank Warren because Frank Warren got shot in 1989. It was very touch and go, nearly died. And Warren stood trial for it. It was a big, big case over here. And although he was acquitted, you cannot mention Terry Marsh without somebody mentioning the shooting of Frank Warren. You just cannot mention it. So, and that's why one reason Terry doesn't like to do interviews at all, because inevitably it always comes back to that.
It kind of has to, because it was so big, and the same thing with Joey Gamache. That loss to Gatti was so big because Gatti came in at like one middleweight, and Joey was a junior welterweight. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah. Not sure what Sarge is on about there when he says that was a screw job, as Ben has argued in the past. I don't actually know what he means there.
I think Marsh. I think he's talking about the Marsh.
I don't know about that. I don't understand how to be a screw job. I don't understand why I've argued that in the past. But regardless, Wilder says he may not be into this anymore. Wilder did seem to be making a retirement speech, by the way, which I think he probably should.
Wilder did make a retirement speech.
He made a possible something you could read into it as a prelude to a retirement speech. He said, "We'll go again, and if not, then it's been a pleasure." It's one of the sentences he came out with. He said, I've looked after my money real well, and he made noises last night that maybe that is all she wrote for him. I think it probably should be, to be honest with you, because I think he's done everything he's going to do, and he has his money anyway. So you know.
Yeah, he has his money, and hats off to Shelly Finkel. All Shelly Finkel's fighters know how to, he definitely takes care of their money.
Well, Shelley Finkel, he's the one who did that amazing deal for Mark Breland. Do you know the
Yeah,
thing where he got 100 grand for his debut, Mark,
yeah.
a 6 rounder against what was the guy's name, Dwight Parker or something like that. But in any case, he managed to get him a deal, an annuity that would pay him 100 grand every year of his life after the age of 31. And supposedly
Yes.
Mark's been getting that annuity ever since,
That's amazing.
which is unbelievable.
It
Yeah.
really is. It's like when you go with people that know, boy, and Shelly's extremely intelligent, wise uh, man, and he's been in the business for a while. He knows what's up, and he had a whole, I don't know, a whole life before boxing and with music and promoting, like.
Yeah, he was a
If
rock impresario, right?
Exactly. So if you know the music game, you know the fight game, and you know what happens, and he had a heart, and he took care of guys. And Mark is one of the guys that, you know what I mean. He's a good man. And it's really beautiful to see Mark doing well, even in this day and age. His sons are great. He's great. It's beautiful to see, and the fact that this allowed him the ability to walk away from Wilder and not have an issue. You know what I mean? A lot of guys would stay on for money and they'd acquiesce and they would like kiss ass and do all the rest of that kind of stuff. But he was insulted by what Wilder did. He's like, I stopped the fight on your best interest, on your best physical interest, because it was only going to get worse. It was only going to get worse. And, if you couldn't see that, I'm sorry. But, from my experience,
set up in the corner because they had that other guy, Jay Diaz, who seemed to be the head coach. And he seemed to be the senior position because he knew less than Mark and was more of a yes man.
Yes, exactly. So
dynamic,
Yeah. So Mark's got the money, his ability to walk away from everything. He doesn't make decisions based on money, nothing in his life. He's laid back. He's cool. He's a great guy. He's having fun, and I admire him for that. But as for Wilder retiring, that's. I hate to, I'm sorry to say it, but it's like I don't have like a huge concern one way or the other, because again, the heavyweight division never really ruled my interest.
No, so it's not one of those things. You couldn't relate to the idea of actually feeling that you've lost something and the world's lost something by this champion moving on and being put out to pasture. It doesn't affect you. You simply shrug and say, yeah, I guess he probably should retire.
It's not even that he should retire. I mean, look, I admire. Look, he has heart. He has heart. He has power. I understand that. He has the courage it takes to get in the ring, the courage it takes to lose in front of millions of people, and to be able to stand up and walk down the street the next day and not jump off a building because of people saying all this dumb stuff about you. That's admirable. I admire all that about him. His heart, his courage, the ability to, to persist in a very dark time. Losing is no joke in front of millions of people. But in terms of his ability, I don't think he got everything that he was supposed to. Look, he was a late start. How many people? I admire what he's able to do for his family. Like, you know what I mean? To take his family and what he had, which was nothing, and to take that and to turn that into gold, and to turn that into money and success, and hopefully a bright future where he never has to come back and fight again. That's dreamland right there. That's, you know what I mean? Congratulations. That's amazing. But in terms of the sport itself and doing boxing, if he's talking about himself not being there or doesn't want to be there anymore, then he shouldn't. And the Anawanda or whatever it is that he's taking, hey, if that chills you out and that's where your life is going to be most happy, then absolutely 100% for you. Yeah. But Ben, did you see that? Like, I'm looking at him, I'm watching him in that fight, and he absolutely was a pacifist. I figured, okay, after maybe the third or fourth round, he's going to start taking range and start letting go. He didn't initiate one exchange. He didn't initiate. He waited till the guy swung and then tried to.
He had one plan, hey, Michael. He was literally trying to draw Wilder onto a straight right hand, and he thought, if I just keep backing up and waiting, at some point I'll tag him. He never found the range, never got anything going. No success whatsoever. And I like what somebody said. They said Wilder last night had the footwork of a snooker table.
That's creative.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was. I could see frustration, and I saw the whole thing when he was in close and he couldn't hit him in the face, and he's rapping on his head like this. And this
that was desperation, man.
This is
ridiculous.
This is what somebody who's never boxed before does. Like,
that's what you'd expect, yeah.
Yeah, that's, in a headlock and going like this on his head. I don't even get where that comes from. That is absolutely, he's fighting from an emotional state, and he's fighting from an emotional state, and his trainer's job is to get him fighting from like a professorial aspect side of things. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what's supposed to happen. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it is. And I said, oh yeah, over the year, I know these guys are working well together because, him and his trainer had done this, that, and the other. I'm sure they did. What else were they going to do with a year off? But I guess not. I can be wrong. I was absolutely.
Do you know what?
This happens when what we do is we put our emotions into things, and we put. And sometimes, like me, I project what I would do in that situation, and that's not always what people would do, and that's why you end up going wrong. You put your personal thoughts on it. And not
I got to tell you, it was almost worth my stats getting worse just to see you take a fall, because after that Ngannou thing, you were getting a little, for someone generally so charming, you were getting a little bit hard to deal with that kind of.
But I'm only
self-satisfaction.
I'm only one out of it.
You're Gary is 7-2, and you're 6-3, so you're actually 2 fights away from. He'd have to lose 2, and you'd have to win 2, I think, to get level.
No, I'm saying to tie with him is just 1 away.
No, because he's 7-2 and you're 6-3. You'd be 7-3 if you win the next one.
Yeah,
he'd still be 7-2.
He'd still be 7-2. But
you're not quite there.
It's not like he wouldn't lose.
The thing is, you are actually very competitive. You care about this more than I do, I've got to say. Because last night, when you weren't even having the video evidence that he picked that he picked Joshua, in actual fact, and you were saying, "No, come on, we want the whole video. I want more evidence." And Gary said, "Thank God Ben's not a sore loser, and he's actually upholding this because Silk won't have it at all." He really digs in, He's a very competitive guy.
It's not a sore loser. I just want evidence, because I remember him distinctly saying that about like agreeing that Anthony Joshua was not going to win. I thought he said all 3 opposite of what you and I agreed before we went off, that you and I picked all 3 the same guys, and he didn't.
But we falsely remembered that we thought he'd gone against us on all 3, and he hadn't. He'd only gone against us on 2 of them. That was the problem. That was what we didn't pay attention to.
Well,
we got it in our heads that he was going.
I'm going to stop making emotional decisions and projecting. That's what I do. I project. I looked at Wilder and I said, well, his guys must be doing this with him, that with him, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm making my bet based on what my theories and not on a reality. And that's, you know what I mean? You have to stay emotionally detached in these things. Otherwise, you stay financially detached.
Yeah. Exactly, but some people are really good at betting. There's a friend on my Facebook called Tommy Shaw. He put £5 on last night, and he put a different accumulator. Like, he bet that Joshua would win by KO, Dubois would win by KO, someone else would just win the fight outright, another fight would go more than 5.5 rounds. He put £5 on. He's got £1,068 back. £1,068 back from a £5 stake, because he just got 7 different bets, like they call it an accumulator, right? He happened to get them all right, 7 different bets, and he made over £1,000 off that little stake.
Okay. But that's not happening all the time. More often than not.
Some people are good at it. I know a few who have always got these accumulators on, and they're really pretty good at it. But it's rare, yeah.
Yeah, it's really rare. I mean, that's when there's no luck. There's no such thing as luck in a boxing match. But there's definitely luck in betting. It's definitely a luck thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of that. I sometimes think about doing it in a more. I don't gamble much at all on fights. I have a very, very occasional bet on boxing. But sometimes I think about doing it in a more systematic way, as if it could be some kind of residual income. But I've never really made that plunge.
So Ben, I have a question for you. There's a heavyweight that just made a comeback, and he was from Brooklyn, or he's a heavyweight, and he fought. I think it was on ESPN maybe a month ago. I don't think it was. I thought him and Big Baby Miller were the same guy. Are they?
Yeah, this is Jared Anderson. You mean
Jared Anderson? What's his name?
They call him the Big Baby as well.
That's what I was confused with.
Yeah.
That's what I was confused with. So one is Jared Big Baby Miller,
and I think they call him Real Big Baby Jared. Yeah. So Jarrell, there's Jarrell Miller and there's Jared Anderson.
Jared Anderson, and Jared Anderson is Big Baby, and he fought a couple of months ago and looked good, right?
Yeah, some people are saying he's the best young heavyweight in the world. Yeah, the best.
And honest to God, I swear to God, I don't know. That's who I thought was fighting last night, and that's why I was like, this guy is like way better. And then when I looked at this guy get in the ring, I was like, oh my God, what happened? Like, how did he go like 2 months ago from that to
I see your confusion now. You thought, what a horrible transformation. You're looking at the statuesque Jared Anderson and thinking, how the heck did he get in that shape?
Yeah, exactly.
How many boxes and burgers did he have at the Hilton?
How do you gain 100 pounds in 2 months? Like, this is insane. Yeah. So that just hit me because something came across Facebook talking about his talent. I think Billy had posted something up on him, and I looked and I was like, oh man, okay. So yeah, the Big Baby title. That's funny.
Yeah.
But that was I honestly, I swear on everything that's the reason why I picked him, because this guy was talented. This other guy who showed up last night, I'm just like, I was mortified. I was like, who is this?
I sometimes think that we, that you shouldn't reveal things you don't know on this show. You should try and style it out, because the thing about you ex-fighters of note, you can get away with not knowing certain details that the journalists are supposed to know, right? Because otherwise, why are we here? Yeah. Whereas you know enough about boxing, it doesn't matter. You guys can get away with saying, well, I've not really seen that guy, or to be honest, sorry, I haven't heard of that guy. But sometimes I find myself thinking you shouldn't reveal ignorance on the show, but you've gone to a new level tonight. You've said you backed the guy because you thought it was somebody else, basically.
Well, it isn't really a lack of knowledge; it's a lack of identification. So I wouldn't necessarily say ignorance. It's not really knowledge; it's identification. So we really need to come up with a different term.
I'm not comfortable with ignorance either. What you shouldn't reveal that you don't know certain things. Sometimes I've felt, but I think that's comical today that you've said. I thought it was the other guy. That's why I picked him to be
because thinking in that type of flow, like you see a guy and you don't see him that often, right? Neither one have I seen often. I just know one's Big Baby. I've only heard of one Big Baby, and both of them are named Big Baby.
To be fair, it is a bit confusing, isn't it? But I remember when they had Charlie Choo Choo Brown and Charlie White Lightning Brown at the same time. Yes. They were distinguished by the nicknames. But the fact that Jarrell Miller and Jared Anderson's names are pretty similar as well as their nicknames.
And they're both heavyweights, and the other kid could be fat, but he was in great shape. So that was the one I thought that was going to be fighting Dubois, and I do think that Big Baby would beat Dubois. Absolutely.
That's entirely plausible. Perhaps he would do. We'll see where it goes. As I said to you, now that the Joshua Wilder fight is probably dead in the water, Eddie Hearn is definitely looking at him fighting Hrgovic for the vacant IBF title next year in his next bout, because he's confident that the winner of Fury Usyk will be stripped of the IBF belt pretty much immediately afterwards for refusing to accommodate Hrgovic, because there's a rematch clause between Fury and Usyk.
And what about the kid from China, the heavyweight?
Good question, Michael. He's the elephant in the room, isn't he? He's beat George twice impressively, devastatingly. he's a commercial product. I think he's got a massive lot of fans in his home land,
He's got,
and
he's
you
got
know, he's a
billions
dangerous
of
guy.
people.
Huh?
He's got billions of fans.
There you go. So Zhang, I'd love to see Zhang in with any of them, but he's
Yeah.
no one's talking about him right now, are they?
Yeah, I guess. Well, he's in Florida, so you know what I mean. It's not like the media here is going to do him any favors still, but he is stateside, and so he should be. His press team should be working. That doesn't make any sense to me that they're not.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's hard.
he's getting old as well. He's pushing 40.
Yeah.
And I think some people in the division might be waiting for him to get a couple more years older if they can help it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I thought you said 38 is the number anyway, because has he slipped? Has he slipped like Beterbiev and others?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen any decline in Zhang, to be honest with you, but I've only seen him fight Hergovich and George twice. I never see him fight except for those 3 fights. Let's say it depends, doesn't it? People are different. Genetically, they're different. And it depends on the wear and tear and the amount of fights you've had and the kind of nature of the fights you've had.
There you go. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. Yeah,
but all I was saying about Wilder was Wilder is still 38. He's had 40-odd fights, however many quick blowouts he's had. It wouldn't be astonishing if Wilder's...
He hasn't been abused. Wilder has not been abused. People talk about, like, okay, he lost, he got dropped by Fury, and he dropped Fury, all this, that kind of stuff. He has not been abused. He's not abused his body physically. He trains. He's he's beat a lot of guys by KO, and you know what I mean. And a lot of his fights have not been torturous affairs. So I don't see where that, if he declines, it's because he declines not because of time. He declines because his interest wanes in it, or he just doesn't want to. That's really about it.
The hunger's not there anymore. And the thing is, he had those severe limitations all along as well, of course.
Exactly. And they're going to get exposed. You hang around long enough and you'll come across your, you know what I mean? Your
exactly. Your kryptonite in various forms. Okay, we need to wrap this soon, but incidentally, Boxing Day, you've got Naoya Inoue out again versus Marlon Tapales. That's a bit of a treat. It's 8 a.m. in the morning UK time. So in the States, it's probably been.
And it's just Boxing Day? The day after?
Day. Inoue's fighting, day after Christmas.
And where's he fighting? In Japan?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So,
and who
we've got to bring it over the festive period this time.
Who are you taking in that one?
I'll stick with Inoue. Are you going to go with anybody else?
I'm going to go with Inoue. I'm going to pad my record. I'm going to be 7.
Okay. So let's take that one. We're going to get a point while Gary's not here, because we're both going to give ourselves an extra point while Gary didn't even get an opportunity. Yeah? Cool? It's not our fault. He had the same opportunity we all had.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you, Gary? Listen, guys, thanks for your support this year. Silk, thanks for your participation and unique ambience.
And thank you for your participation and
unique.
It's been
fun. We've been doing this.
Uh-oh. It looks like somebody, I'm going to have to do the sign off. This is Sugar, Silk, and Stretch signing off for now. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll be speaking to you before then, but there is more to come. It's going to be an exciting year. Let's go. I think I'm going to go. How does one go?